Hi, friend and colleague. It's Nikki from Full Voice Music on our podcast, episode 202. My special guest is award-winning childhood music educator and composer Ben Bowen. We are talking about the joy of sharing music and how Ben addresses this need with music that inspires all ages. Now, for teachers who are familiar with the Full Voice Song Library, you know that Ben's music is a big part of our repertoire. His pop, rock, folk, jazz melodies are heartfelt and so delightful to explore with our singers. So in this episode, we are sharing some of Ben's favorite tunes, some never heard before music, and we're going to start off the podcast with Sing.
Sing for the love in your heart. Sing for the light. Sing for the hope that you hold. Sing for the joy of the song. Sing for the love in your heart. Sing for the light. Sing for the hope that you hold. Sing for the joy of the song. Sing for the sun. Sing for the rain. Sing for the wind in the trees. Sing for the joy of the song.
Welcome back to the Full Voice Podcast, my friend and colleague and super composer and master early childhood educator and award winner, Ben Bowen. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. It is so nice to talk to you. Ben and I, for my listeners, Ben and I, our sons went to the same elementary school. And we would talk forever in the playground, waiting for our children to tire themselves out after school. And we had the best conversations.
Yeah. This is pre-pandemic, pre the world ending.
Pre-pandemic, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I watched you through the pandemic with great admiration and respect, how you navigated and continued to give people, families, a musical inspiration. Like you did some really beautiful things through the pandemic to make sure that kids were still being stimulated and listening and moving to music.
You know, the funny thing about the pandemic was realizing how inflexible I actually was. I feel like I'm pretty flexible and I roll with things, but it took me a long time to a lot of people pivoted quickly and I didn't feel like I pivoted fast enough. I got onto Zoom and did Zoom classes, but it took me 6 months, and initially I was just recording classes and putting them on YouTube. And then I did Zoom classes, and then I started recording the Zoom classes for YouTube, which made sense, but I remember there was a mom who like really early on, her husband works for oh my gosh, what's the really big kids cartoon TV show, like the big one.
Nickelodeon?
No, but the show with the dog with
Oh.
the fire hat.
Oh, Blue?
Uh, no. Anyway, no, just before that. Anyway,
Okay.
she was like, you need to pivot and get on Zoom and do online classes, and I was like, I don't know how to do that, and then I did it, and it was great. But then, like, yeah, I mean, I had to rely on the government for the subsidy, right, to make it work. And then when things opened up a little bit, I started doing classes outside, and that was just a headache and a half because I had to get permits through the city, and they only had day permits, and I had to get hour permits, and I had to go
Oh.
like through our city councilor to go to bat for me, all of the crap. And then we would do like a class of 10 families, and they'd be like, and tomorrow you can only have 5 families outside, and then I would like switch and do 2, and then they'd be like, and in 2 days you can only have 1 family, and then they'd be like, everything shut down, and it was like, back and forth, open and closed.
Yeah.
But I survived
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
just
I
barely.
well, I have to tell you, I mean, you were inspirational. Like I was watching you, I was seeing your YouTube, and the whole Full Voice team was cheering you on. I mean,
Oh,
you were incredible. Like to us, I know we didn't see the internal struggles, but to us, you never gave up and you were constantly, you know, doing what you do, and I had great admiration for that. It was very inspiring.
I mean, part of that is necessity. Part of that, like, is I realized, I was writing my bio today for you guys. I have been doing this work since 2009. I don't have like I can't if I put together a resume, nobody's gonna hire me for anything else. There's nothing else that I can do. And it was a single, like we were a single income under this roof. And I was like, well, it's like the same thing as I don't get sick days, right? Like if I
Yeah,
get a sick
yeah.
day, I lose money. If I get, so I don't get sick. My body and I have an agreement and I don't get sick. It's the same thing that I just thought, well, what am I gonna do? I gotta keep going because the option is there, especially then, because it wasn't even like you could go out and find a different job. It was just like, well, this is what I do. So how am I gonna do it?
Well, I tell you what, everybody here, we would hire you in a heartbeat because your music is the top selling music on our site. Like teachers absolutely love your music. I mean, the whole Full Voice team, we adore your music. I've
Oh,
often said to Sean, I said, if I ever, not that this would happen, I said, if I ever wanted to start playing again and get like a little like kind of folky jazz ensemble going on, I would totally put your songs and Donna Rodenizer songs in my set and just do cool folky versions of them because they're so beautiful to sing.
it's wild. Yeah, I mean, that is surprising. It's lovely to hear, but that's wild. I mean, I had no idea before you said that.
Well, and I have to tell you this, and Sean, you cannot edit this out. So So when we were getting some of the demos recorded, so we had some of Linda's kids sing your songs, and we've had our Nicole does a lot of the singing for our demos. Um, it Waiting for the Moon. There's a line in Waiting for the Moon, which is and when the morning comes, we'll hug our dads and mums. And Sean lost it. Like, he
Oh.
was, like, bawling his eyes out because we have a 14-year-old that doesn't wanna hug us anymore, so he's like, "Oh, I
Oh.
remember when he wanted to hug me," and I'm like he comes in from the recording studio, I'm like, "Man, what is wrong with you?" And he's like, "That Ben Bowen is a jerk."
La 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 la. And when the morning comes, we'll hug our dads and mums and tell them all about our dreams, and the day will begin. But until then, we're just waiting for the moon to rise, waiting for the stars to shine, waiting for the night to come and claim her place.
The funny thing about that line is that that's a line that I adjust in classes, and I didn't record it this way, but I sing, "We'll hug our dads and or moms" in class because I have lots of queer families in my classes. So there are lots of kids who come with two moms and lots of kids who come with two dads, and so I wanted to make it inclusive. And so actually hug our dads and moms is grammatically vague. It's grammatically vague on purpose, but you don't necessarily think of it that way, right? This is a totally different topic, but like it's heteronormative to think of it as dad and mom, but it could be hug our dads and hug our moms. Like one family's hugging their dads and one family's hugging their moms. Anyway,
Or
I
you could
sing
have
and
a
or in
split
class.
family, right? You could have
Oh
a split
yeah.
family, right? Where yeah, oh gosh, such that's important.
So it's when I was writing it, I tried to figure out how to make it work, but it is intentionally grammatically ambiguous so that it could be any or either.
Ugh.
Yeah.
The other one that that we love is Summer Samba.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The one thing that I love is I mean the melody's so beautiful, but there we use your YouTube videos as references when we're transcribing them because Mim does an amazing job of taking your guitar work and putting really beautiful piano stuff
I know,
for our
it's
teachers.
impressive.
I know that is one of her superpowers. So shout out to Mim.
Yeah.
But for any of our teachers listening, the piano that you're playing is essentially your guitar playing. But
Hmm.
one of the things that I love in Summer Samba is you get the kids doing body percussion. You get them doing the little shakers in their hands, and you have the dynamic play. How often do you kind of try to get them like into their bodies or doing kind of percussive stuff in your classes?
Well, all of the songs that I write are written for class. Like they're they're all really practical in that way. So what's an example? The pretty snowflakes fall down from the sky. I used Satie's melody and did that. We didn't have a snowflake song, and so I was like, well, we need a song that does snowflakes. Well, I bought a parachute, like a 25-foot parachute, a couple summers ago, and so I've written a bunch of parachute songs in the last little while. Because the parachute's great, right? Because you can show macro beats and micro beats, and you can show rhythm and tempo and meter. Like you can be really intentional, and it doesn't matter if the kids are under the parachute or on the sides of it. We're showing all of that stuff. Um, and I do so all even the songs that I write that are for percussion instruments. How much of it is body percussion? That's one of the only ones. That's a good point. I could do more. It's not that we don't what it's like I bring percussion instruments to class a lot, like as a prop. And so we do lots and lots of percussion instruments in class. And the first thing we sing is Beautiful Day and Let's Sing a Song. And so that's always got a little bit of like moving your body. But Summer Samba is the only one, and it's specifically because it goes between like loud daytime percussion and what I call like nighttime percussion. And I call them shuka chukas. So you can your shuka chuka, shuka chuka, shuka chuka, shuka chuka, shuka. And so you can do loud shuka chukas with your percussion and quiet shuka chukas with your hands.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. Oh, I love those moments for kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean I'm treating music when I was finishing my undergrad and my 12th year of my undergrad. um I came across some research about music being acquired in the brain like language. um I think you and I have talked about this before, and that I was suddenly struck by the idea of music as a language in the brain, and that there is no other language where you put a piece of sheet music in front of a kid, like you put a piece of writing in front of a kid and tell them to read before they can speak the language. So what I'm doing in class is giving them kind of it's what I call musical immersion, that I'm giving them the syntax and the vocabulary and the bits and pieces so that they can then start to speak, and start to speak words of music and start to speak in little sentences, and then they can put together a whole thought in music. That's sort of my approach. I've lost the thread of what you asked.
No, I love this. I love the what you're saying about the language and the immersion of it. I know in my teaching studio that any of the children that came from the um, preschool music enrichment type programs
Yeah,
had abilities innate, what seemed to be innate. They weren't innate, but what they just had a natural flow with the music, the language of music that say children who didn't. And I I, I don't know, gosh. I'm going to get a little spicy here. I went I went recently. I'm not going to name where I went or who I saw. I went recently to see a musical production at a high school. And while there were some key performers who obviously have private instruction,
right.
the majority of them are lacking so badly in skills that I literally witnessed what the cuts to music education over the last couple of decades has resulted in. And my heart was so sad
Yeah.
because I'm watching like a couple of people really shine because parents invested probably a lot of money into extracurricular. And then I'm watching a whole group of young people, probably in grade 11, grade 12, who are struggling. And I'm like, this is what has happened. This is the result.
It's such a myopic way of running government and of running education because it's not understanding the wider impact of learning the arts. It's not understanding how that stuff affects a kid's brain. Like at the young age, it's not just that it's acquired in the brain like language, it's that a second language, which music can be seen as, contributes to the growth of the first one. Like they build on top of each other, right? That idea of how a language builds contributes, like kids start to, I've seen kids in my classes suddenly acquire their first language faster because they're in music and they're acquiring this second language. And it like all of those knock-on effects are like music obviously on its own is if we're studying, but if the governments were to understand the knock-on effects and the ways that the arts contribute to like brain development and learning and sort of a fuller picture of how a kid learns, then they might, it's just, as I say, it just feels totally myopic, like all math and science. And you think like, yeah, but that the music part of it will contribute to all of that stuff, will contribute to all the math and science. My older kid, Charlie, is now in university. He's 18.
Whoa. What?
And is
What?
in the
Charlie is
integrate.
18?
I
No.
know. And he's a McMaster in the Integrated Sciences program,
Oh my
which is
gosh.
calculus, physics, uh, chemistry, biology, and anthropology. It's 60 hours a week.
Wow.
But his last year of high school, he was in We Will Rock You, the musical. Like, and had a, you know, had a key role in the musical and knocked it out of the park. And I think like, yeah, these things they contribute to each other. Like this is a bright kid because this kid is good at all the like crazy sciencey math stuff, which is not my department, but also like grew up in a super musical artsy house and environment and really embraced that. In fact, there was a point when he couldn't decide whether or not he wanted to go into integrated sciences or into musical theater. And I was like, maybe do the sciences and do the musical theater thing on the side so that you have money.
Right.
It'd be great.
Oh man. Now, I this is not surprising to me because Charlie actually co-wrote one of the songs that is coming out in our new songbook, The Pretty Butterfly.
I it's funny that you say that because I just had a conversation with him and he was like, "Oh, well, I'd like to see the spreadsheets. I'd like to know what my royalties will be." Because I just told him he'll get 100% of the royalties from that song.
Oh, okay. Well, that's well, you get our royalty statements. It'll tell Charlie exactly how many of those songs that he sold. So
I know, it's pretty good. Yeah, he's
that's
pretty chuffed.
awesome. I love that he's just demanding like you don't even get a cut. Nothing?
Well, I mean, you know, he really wrote it. I just put like the Jack Johnson-y guitar chords under it. I remember he was like 8 and we walked into this room that I'm sitting in. And
Yeah.
he was like, I have a song. I was
Oh,
like,
I
great.
love this.
And he sang the whole thing. Like had put
Wow.
together had the whole thing. And so I was like, hold on a second. And I went and grabbed my guitar and like put it in the key he was singing in and started trying to figure out how to play it. And then the recorder parts, oh, this is a great story because the year that he did that, they had a talent show, and I was like, you need to sing this. Oh no, it was a talent show at Theater Ancaster where I was working. And there are 2 recorder parts that go ba 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 ba. He learned to play that so that he could do 2 recorders in his nose so that he could play the 2 parts.
Oh
He
my
learned to
gosh.
play it. And then he refused to do it at the talent show. He would only sing it and wouldn't do, like he had figured out how to play 2 recorders up his nose. It was fantastic.
Oh
It
my
was my
gosh.
favorite.
Talent.
I
Talent.
know. I
You know
know.
what? I if Noah was willing to do any music, even playing things with his nose, I'd be a happy mama. But
It's all baseball all the time.
he's on Team Nova Scotia now. I don't.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So So a lot of like emails are responded to at the sides of baseball fields, which is just fine. Will celebrate that. But yeah, no. Sean and I just shake our heads. It's like all of our friends have musical children except for us.
Who is this kid?
So, um, I want to share some new music. So
Oh, great.
yeah. So you well, actually, no, I lied. You have had an incredible year. We talked way back before the pandemic. You survived the pandemic like a trooper, but you've had an incredible year, and I would love people to know about how you are just starting, well, not starting, but you're just getting some beautiful love.
Yeah, I've got some lift, shall we say. Um, so like 2 years ago, I put out the last album I put out, Here Comes the Train. And I submitted it. It's weird because you have to submit it to awards yourself, which is quite strange. But I submitted it to the Junos and to the Canadian Folk Music Awards, and the Canadian Folk Music Awards nominated it for Best Children's Album of the Year, which was
Mm.
crazy.
Yes,
So in
but
in
also
Mar-
no, because it's an amazing album.
that's sweet. Thank you. It's funny because I finally embraced my pop sensibilities. Like I really just went all in on making a pop record because that's turns out that's who I am. Um And then I went out to Newfoundland. I got a Factor grant and I went out there. And I mean, I didn't win, but it was great. I actually ran into Larnell Lewis, who's the drummer from Snarky Puppy, and
Oh,
he
wow.
didn't he didn't expect anybody to know who he was because it's a folk thing. And I nerded out. Like I fanboyed all over him in a way that I think I know now, looking back, made him really uncomfortable, which was really funny. Um,
Uh,
Anyway, I went out to that. That was great. Met a bunch of people. There's actually a band in Cambridge, not far from here, called the Relative Minors, who were nominated for the same award. And so I have since collaborated with them a little bit. I put trumpet on their most recent album. They're both teachers, so I went to her elementary school and like played. I did the last post, and then I went and did a concert the next week. Um, it's been great. And then in June, or I suppose early last year, I was nominated for a City of Hamilton Arts Award. And I won in a creator category. So I had to go, actually, June 5th, like on my birthday, I got to go to the awards and give a speech and get an
Amazing.
award. Yeah, it was pretty, the award that is. And it's very intense, like getting up in front of a group of your peers to like say a thing. And that came with a cash prize as well. And they were like, "We want this to contribute to your career." And I was like, "I'm gonna fix my car's brakes, and I'm gonna go to the ophthalmologist, and I'm gonna pay my taxes."
Oh,
Maybe
bravo.
maybe that contributes to my career. I needed a new guitar because my other one had been damaged beyond repair playing the Gage Park band shell.
Yes.
So I bought myself a guild, but those were the things that I did. Um, and then Justin Roberts is an American kids musician. He has been nominated for 5 Grammy Awards. And when I was doing my undergrad, I talked to him when I was doing a paper about kids music, and he and I have kept in touch. And so when I put out Here Comes the Train, I sent the whole thing to him first and said, "What do you think?" I actually gave Fred Penner an advance copy too. I only had 8 of the 12 songs recorded, but I gave Fred Penner like on a CD these 8 because he was here in Hamilton.
Yeah.
Um, and Justin Roberts gave me some really great feedback about it. And then he said, "Hey, you have to submit this for a Grammy." And I had missed the deadline because the Grammy submissions are in August,
Right. Right.
which is like it's very strange, right? It's just such a weird calendar to go from August to July or whatever it is. Anyway, so I missed that. Um, but he's then the one who nominated me to be in the Recording Academy. So to become a member of the Recording Academy, you have to be nominated by 2 people. So he put my name in after he said, "I wish that you had put your album in for a Grammy consideration because I would have voted for it." He said, you should join the Recording Academy." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And so he then got in touch with another American musician friend of his and said, "Here is Ben's stuff. Could you second the nomination?" And this guy seconded the nomination. And suddenly I'm on like a member of the Recording Academy for the Grammys, which meant that just a couple of months ago, no, last month, I had to vote
Wow.
for the Grammys. I had to like vote for Billie Eilish and vote for
Oh
like
my gosh, that's
it was
incredible.
bananas. Yeah. Chaperone and like you pick categories. You don't have to vote for anything, but you can go through. Um, that was eye-opening because the first round of that is like every category has like 110 submissions. And you think like, how like it's clear how this stuff happens because who in their right mind is going to go listen to 2,000 different submissions, and some of those are whole albums. Like it's not just a track. And so immediately you go through the list and you think like, oh, I recognize that one and I recognize that one and I recognize that one. So out of 110, you're suddenly picking between three. You're not picking between these 110 because there's no possible way to do that work. That was interesting, right? That is why it suddenly occurred to me. That's why the really popular songs are the ones that win. Because it's just like that you reach a tipping point. You reach critical mass, and the more people who know who you are, even though they don't know whether it's better than these other 107 submissions, at least they just don't have time. It would take days to listen to the amount of music that they put out.
Weeks.
They
It would
ask you to
take
vote on.
weeks.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so interesting.
Yeah.
So, ha do do all these experiences, have they kind of changed your approach? Because 'Cause you're working on a new album right now.
I am working on a new album. Well, uh, um, the missing the Grammys deadline has changed my approach for how I'm gonna get a record in for the Grammys.
Sure.
Um, I mean, putting out "Here Comes the Train," that 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 album really felt like a level up from the records that I had put out before, and it was such a different approach. I really intended this is what I like. This is now what I do as a musician. I do kids music, and the first 3 or 4 albums that I put out, the first 3 albums for sure that I put out were definitely like, I'm recording these songs for the families in my classes so they can have the music to listen to. But their aesthetic was like the Sharon Lewis and Bram and the Raffi records that I grew up listening to. And by the time I got to "Here Comes the Train," I was really proud of those songs, like all of them. And I decided that I was going to approach it differently. I was like, this is my art. So I'm not going to do this for the kids. I'm going to do this for me. I'm going to make this record the way that I want to make it. Cause it turns out I have a pop soul. Like I'm like a rock pop right to the core. And
Right.
I'm going to record these songs in a way that is really, really creatively fulfilling for me.
Nice.
Um, and they're still the same songs the kids know in class. I mean,
And
the
they
thing that
still love them.
they still totally love them. I
Yeah.
mean, the nice thing was after putting out that record that I had lots of parents casually say to me in conversation that their Spotify playlist would be going and it would have this record and my songs would come on and they wouldn't switch it. They'd be like, "Oh, I like this tune." Right? Even if their kid's not in the room, which is that's kind of high praise because I just felt for so long like there was such um unlistenable kids music being put out that I didn't want to do that.
Well, and I think in adding to that, I think one of the reasons why our teachers love your songs for their studios, and one of the biggest challenges for voice teachers is we have young singers in our studio, and of course they are influenced by, you know, pop culture and their favorite singers, but sometimes just on a vocal level or on a lyrical level it's not, then you run the whole, is this appropriate, whether the lyrics make you uncomfortable, or whether just vocally it's just something that's going to make, and I mean, best practices is you would maybe change the key or change a few notes, but some songs are just really out of scope for a child's voice. And with your music, there's none of that because it is poppy, it is folky, it has that jazzy element, like, and I mean, and it's accessible and it's easily expressed, which is so important when you're working with a child. They have to be able to relate to it, or the expression is, not.
It's the thing that I think makes my songs different on record, is that they are lyrically really repetitive and simple. Like the way that the songs are constructed is like a Coldplay song, you know what I mean? It's like it's really middle of the road pop, although I think a lot of what I did on the last record was pretty outside. Anyway, but lyrically, because the kids that I teach are like 0 to 6, I don't change the verses. We go verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, and the verses are generally are the same. Um, there's a song called "Sing," which is Fred Penner. That's his favorite song on that record. Um, but the chorus repeats twice, and then there's a really simple verse, and then the chorus repeats twice, and then there's a really simple second verse. But for the most part, the words don't change. The words are written for little kids, and the words don't change because I want them to be able to sing them. Because I want them to be able to sing them in class. And if I'm changing and writing 3 verses, 4 verses, um, that won't happen. I mean, the actual exception is a track called "Little Owl" on the record, which is like 4 different animals and all of them hiding from the owl. And it turns out I never sing that in class
Oh, interesting.
because it's too complicated. I could do the verses with the kids moving around as those animals, but
Sure.
to be honest, part of that problem is that I wrote that song for the album, and I never remember the lyrics.
Hey there, friend and colleague. Continuing your professional development is key to staying inspired, improving your teaching skills, and staying connected to the ever evolving field of voice education. At Full Voice Music, we've made professional development fun, affordable, and convenient with our online courses. For teachers who are getting started with young singers, please check out our play-based learning, engagement, and lesson pacing course. This is an intensive 45-minute course with strategies and best practices for engaging educational singing lessons. Now, for teachers needing a deeper dive into changing voices, our 90-minute presentation, Voice Growth and Change in Kids and Teens with Dr. Ginevra Williams, will help you support your adolescent singers with empathy and understanding. Both of these courses include an optional teacher quiz and certificate of completion. As a podcast listener, you can save 20% off each of these courses when you use the code PODCAST. Learn at your own pace and in the comfort of your home and gain practical, actionable knowledge that you can use right away. Full Voice Music is excited to support your journey as a voice educator. Visit fullvoicemusic.com to explore our courses and get started today. Amen. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you brought that up. I want to just circle back to about because one of your top selling songs and one of our favorite songs here at Full Voice is When Winter.
Oh
I
yeah.
love that song. And it's lyrically very repetitive. And what I love to do, what I used to do with it when I had my teenagers, I'm like, I would give that song to my teenagers and use it as everything is repetitive, but you have to, let's do some improvisation, change that melody. The words are the same, do something different. And it
It's nice
was
not to have to think about the words.
exactly. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I always talk about with teachers when I do my teacher training is lyric and lyric discovery is something that is quite challenging for all ages. It's not just children. One of the things I discovered really early, like the first week of teaching during the pandemic, because I was navigating the Zoom challenges and I didn't know what I was doing teaching online. I did a lot of speaking activities just to get started, and I did all these lyric discovery activities. And it was a gut punch how many of my students had no clue what those songs were about. Like, and I'm talking about my adults and
Right.
my teenagers. And then I went to my classroom teachers and I'm like, "What's up with this reading comprehension stuff?" And they're like, "Yeah, that's actually a really hard skill. It requires a lot of executive function ability." And I'm like, "Dang." And it really changed my approach when I was working with my students about songs and lyrics. And it also was a huge eye opener to this is why they struggle with expression because they actually just don't know.
Oh, that's so funny. I auditioned for Fiddler on the Roof my last year of high school, and I used Jabberwocky from Lewis Carroll, from Alice in Wonderland.
Yes.
And I mean, I know I can still recite the whole poem, but if I go back and look at that audition, I realized that I was reciting it
Yeah.
rather than putting meaning into it. Do you know what I mean? Like I didn't necessarily I wasn't it's the same. I'm saying it's the same thing that I was like the words were coming out, but I wasn't expressing them because I hadn't really thought about how the story was working, what the poem meant. It's the same thing. When I do classes, I insist on doing a lullaby at the end of the class.
I love that.
And I tell parents the best way for your kids to be musical is to sing to them, like hands down. And so because we're such a funny culture that we don't like singing in front of other people, I often do what I call a la verse. This is directly connected because I say, look, I'm going to do this song that we've sung a couple of times, and I want you to sing to your kid, and I'm going to do a la verse where you don't need to know any of the words. I want you to sing and don't think about any of the words. And there are two reasons. The first reason is that it takes out the layer of information for the kids so they can just concentrate on the music, and you don't have an excuse that you don't know the words. And I say, like, with a jazz background, I never sing the same melody twice. So it doesn't matter what melody you're singing.
Yep.
Just like sing to your kid. And we do it a couple of times. And I say, like, I'm going to look down at my guitar. I'm not going to look at you. And I say, the funny thing is, everybody in this room hates singing in front of other people as much as you do. And so everybody is only concentrating on their own voices anyway. Nobody's
Yeah.
listening to you, just your
Exactly.
kid.
Everybody else is
Yeah,
in fight or flight. So,
totally.
yeah. Wow. I love I love how you're addressing that with families and just taking away the barriers to allow them to do the most important thing.
It works. I mean, if I furtively look up, I'll see parents singing to their kids, right? And they're looking down at their kid because they know that they're singing in front of other grown-ups, but they're doing
Yeah.
it.
Wow. Man, if we could just encourage more families to sing to their kids, what a different world we'd have.
Hmm. And then suddenly they cut you off. My 13-year-old Ollie, sometime about a year ago, just told me I was done with singing. No more singing. All
Really?
done. Yeah, and I had sung Mole in the Ground to him for like 10 years. I could sing Mole in the Ground in my sleep, and I know that because I would sometimes fall asleep singing it, and he would squeeze my hand to like wake me up so that I could keep singing until he fell asleep.
Oh, my heart.
I know.
Okay,
Until he was
so
like 12.
I that is beautiful. So my punishment with my 14-year-old is
Uh-oh.
if I'm driving like the kids to Dartmouth or wherever they have to go, they'll quite often sing in the back. And I love it because, will not sing. He's a capable singer. Like I've heard him,
Oh, that's
right?
that's brutal.
But he won't.
Yeah.
But Ben, you're going to die. You're going to die. He will sing, but he will deliberately sing off key. And he does it cuz he knows that it drives me absolutely insane.
Like a
And
semitone or a quarter tone?
oh, whatever he's feeling, maybe a fourth, maybe he'll just drop down the octave to grumble a few notes when I
Oh,
know
that's
he's
amazing.
perfectly capable. And um like you know the threats you give your kids when you're driving. If you don't start singing in tune, I'm going to turn this car around, right? But the other thing that my son enjoys doing is, at baseball games, you got to cheer on your friends. He
Yeah.
loves to let me know that his voice is hoarse. He thinks that is the ultimate goal of being, and I'm just like, what did
But
I
your
do
kid's
to
trolling you
he's totally
hard.
trolling me hard, and I'm like, I
That's
don't
funny.
deserve this. Anyhow, so I love that it's hard, when they're like, yeah, we don't need you to do that anymore.
It and, I mean, they say that it goes by fast, but the thing is, I've said this to parents, a couple of parents recently, it's not that it goes by fast, it's that the changes are sudden.
Oh,
The
so
changes are
sudden.
sudden. Like,
Yeah.
and the kid has been ready for it for a while, and they suddenly let you know that they're ready, and you haven't been ready, right? Like I was sleeping on a mattress on Ollie's floor for ages, too long, longer than I will say out loud. And there was a day that we woke up, and he woke up in his bed, and I woke up on the mattress on the floor, and he said, "Is that comfortable?" And I was like, "Well, no. I mean, I prefer my bed." And he was like, "I thought so. I mean, maybe you should sleep in your own bed." And that was the end. And
Wow.
so forever now. So now we go to bed, we like hug, and I give him a hug and a kiss, and I say goodnight, and then we go to off to our separate bedrooms. And I think like, this was sudden. I was not that day. I was not ready for it. Right. So it's crazy.
Yeah. I know. I remember you would walk down Dundurn Street to the school with
Yeah.
Ollie on your shoulders reading him
Reading a
a
book.
book.
Uh-huh.
I
The
remember
day
that.
that ended during an ice storm, because I remember leaving the house, and he was big, like, and it would, I was huffing and puffing by that point by the time we would get to school. And I was like, "Ollie, I can't put you on my shoulders right now, because if I fall, we might both die." So, and then we both got like sticks, and like held hands and had a stick in the other hand and tried to keep each other up. And that was the last time. And that was again like a super sudden, like, that's the end of that. This period's over now. And I think a lot of that is us as parents making it last longer than it needs to. Right? The kids are okay.
Of course, yes.
Yeah,
Yep. I agree.
funny.
You are working on a new album.
I am.
And so ca for no pressure, but can you give us kind of a vibe of something like what's coming down the pipes for us?
It's a good question. So last year I wrote 23 new songs.
Wow.
Um, and the majority of those, 17 of those, were songs that I wrote with a dear friend of mine who is a child therapist,
Oh.
and wanted to do had done a class for mindfulness for kids and parents. And when she ran it for 6 weeks, she decided she wanted to include music. So she approached me, and we started writing songs together, and we wrote 17 songs for kids about mindfulness.
Wow.
And it is um I'm really, really proud of all those songs. We eh, to give you a sense of what it was like, we cried a lot while writing these songs.
Oh.
Um so I had written a few for class. Again, like I got this 25-foot parachute, and I've been writing a bunch of parachute songs. I was tempted to put out a record called Parachutes, but that's Coldplay's first album,
Oh.
which would be like,
There's a lawsuit there.
yeah. And I have a bunch of like pop sensibility songs that I've started recording. And I have a handful of songs that are way more folky, way more like the early stuff. So initially I was gonna do two like 6-song EPs, with the like companion EPs or something.
Sure, sure.
Uh, um, but recently Amber asked if maybe we could just start recording the mindfulness record. So I think what's going to happen is I'm probably going to put out a combination record with some of the really pop sensibility songs that I've written, and sort of my favorite songs from the mindfulness record. I don't know if she's going to go for that. I asked Charlie about it, and Charlie was like, "No, the mindfulness thing needs to be a project unto its own." So I'm right now just like recording stuff. I don't know how it's gonna compile. I don't know how it's gonna come out, but I started with a song called Snowball Fight,
I
which
love
is
it.
like, I wrote it last year when we were doing indoor classes. And again, like, it's that sense of like, oh, we don't really have like a proper snow song, like a fun one that we could do with a parachute. And I bought 100 um indoor snowballs, like pom poms, like really tight pom poms. And we have an actual snowball fight in class while we sing this song.
Oh, I love that.
It's fantastic. Um, Again, like, just that sense of um, kids learn through play. Kids are hearing the music. We're giving them, it's in 3/4. Um, and music is kind of abstract, and so trying to connect music to concrete things for the kids so that they can sort of literally grab onto it and then throw it at somebody. No, not quite, but yeah. So that's like what I'm calling the lead single off the new record, but it's the first one that I recorded, and it's very rock and roll.
I love it.
Yeah,
Can we play that? Do you have a demo that we could put on the podcast?
I do. Yeah, I will
my
send you the
gosh.
demo.
Awesome.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
All right.
It's like exclusive. It'll be like the second mix of it ever, right?
Snow, 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 snow. Throw, 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 throw. Snow, 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 snow. Throw, throw, throw. The best thing in winter is snow. You can make snowballs wherever you go. Roll them up in mitted hands, then send them skyward and see where they land. Hurtling off through the sky, spinning around as they fly. Spend the whole day in the great outdoors when the snow falls. Snow, 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 snow. Throw, 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 throw. Snow, 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 snow. Throw, throw, throw. The best thing in
I mean, recording is a funny process because it's so stop and start. You really just have to let it happen. And when you finish a record, you're so drained of creative stuff that you think like, okay, well, I guess I'm never doing another record again. Right? Kathleen Edwards put out a record and then like quit music and went up to Ottawa and bought a coffee shop and ran a coffee shop for 5 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was like, I'm
Oh,
all done. There's nothing left. And now she's playing again. She put out a new record. I sat in with her 2 falls ago. I played trumpet with her at a show a couple of falls ago, which was wonderful. Um, and then yeah, so I finished the record almost 2 years ago, and then had a whole year of just like singing those songs. And then last year, as I say, I wrote 23 songs. And then this year, I was like, I think I'm ready. I think I could do it. I think I can jump in and start recording again.
I love that. I wanted to ask you, so you're because I know from my own experiences, the recording process is a creative pit of exhaustion.
Juggernaut.
Right?
Yeah.
And beautiful moments, hard moments, and yes, I can completely relate to going and buying a coffee shop and never wanting to do it again. Um, when
It's like having
you
a baby.
Oh my gosh, and it just so there's my question right there. So you're writing your tunes, you're in the creative process, you put out your work. Now you're taking your work into your classes, you're using them for musical exploration with your kids. Do you like do you ever have, okay, this was my favorite, song on the album, but this is the song that's a hit with the kids. Do you ever have that where I didn't think this song would turn out and be a different kind of tool in another, how sometimes you love the song in the studio but you hate the song on stage?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I think Little Owl is that I really enjoyed playing that. I was playing a lot of bass, and that song is really bass driven, and so like I got a good groove going, and I put it together. Um, and now as I say, like I don't even perform it because if I perform it, I have to literally write out the lyrics and put them on a music stand in front of me, and even then, like you're staring at the paper. It's weird. How come I can't remember my own words? Um, the one that everybody asks for, and it doesn't, I mean, my songs are sort of apportioned to 8-week sessions of classes. The one that I get asked for, regardless of what session it is Here Comes the Train. Here comes the train down the track. Here comes the train down the track. You can hear the whistle, see the engine gleam, hear the click-clack of the wheels, watch the big white clouds of steam. Hey, look at all the freight cars coming round the bend, carrying all the cargo. The journey's nearly at an end. Across the board. I mean, last week I started a new session of classes, and after the first class, I'm almost like, hey, can we do Here Comes the Train? Like next week for Lullaby. And I was like, yes, sure, no problem. But I do it.
Shameless plug, Here Comes the Train is in our introductory B songs and studies. And it was one of our favorite songs that it's just there's just so much in it. It's a beautiful song.
It's the only kids song that finishes on an E flat 9 sharp 5.
I think we had arguments about that with the team. It was like, was it didn't I think you and Mim go back a lot of emails about what about this chord? Is this? And then you come back.
I don't get to nerd out with anybody, so it's nice to nerd out with somebody, even if it's over email. That song. So I was reading the Rick Rubin book, and I was reading this. Do you know who Philip K. Dick is? Philip K. Dick wrote like a ton of science fiction. He wrote Minority Report. He wrote.
Oh, okay.
Like he's a Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Blade Runner. He wrote all the Blade Runner.
Oh, Blade Runner. Okay,
he's like a big deal. But he was mentally ill. He was like schizophrenic, and he wrote an exegesis of like how he wrote his stuff. And he believed that all of his stories were being beamed into his brain by a pink light from outer space. And that sounds nuts. But then I'm reading the Rick Rubin book, and the Rick Rubin book talks about how inspiration is like something dropping into your brain. Here Comes the Train took me less than 20 minutes to write, from beginning to end. Chords and words, the whole thing. I just was like, people say, I love that song. Did you write it? And I say, sort of, but I feel like I was transcribing it. I feel like it was dropped into my brain.
Okay, so I'm totally on board with this, and because the other day, and Sean is gonna laugh. The other day, Sean and I were driving into New Germany, which is like a teeny tiny little town in the middle of nowhere. We're going to the one only cafe for lunch, and on the way, I'm like, oh, I just got this idea for a Kitty Unicorn musical. And I literally wrote all characters, the plot, the beginning of song lyrics in 3 hours.
Yeah.
And like, I have to say, first of all, to my listeners, yes, it's coming. No, it won't be this year. But
amazing.
But it was like a strange 3-hour just wave of ideas that I could not stop. And it's been a long time for me.
And you can't keep up with it, right?
No. And I was so upset when the waitress was trying to take my order, and I've got my little stylist for my phone, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll have what he's having. And I couldn't stop. And then I came home and I wrote it out, and I actually did a run through with the team the next day. I'm like,
Whoa.
and they're all like, when did you write all this? I said, yesterday. And Mim was like, "No, you didn't." She's like, "Really?" I said, "I don't know what it was. It was like we were just driving around. I saw this owl in a tree, and I thought, there's a cool owl in a tree. And then this idea hit me like a pink beam from space, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
totally get that.
Yeah. It
Wow.
sounds mentally ill until you've experienced it. And it's like an information dump. It's like you're downloading
It
something.
was an information dump. Huge. Yes. Thank you. Okay. So good. I'm normal. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Ben.
Do you know who Rick Rubin's a big producer, right? He's produced like massive rap albums and metal albums, and he's like a guru. And he put out this book last year, and it's very odd because it's such a funny combination of like philosophy and practical approach and woo woo, like woo woo. And you're like, this is hard. It's hard to parse what's what sometimes, but I mean, he talks about the same thing. He just talks about like really surrendering to the process, really like letting things happen, and also writing. Like when you're being creative, be creative for what you like make the art that you like. Stop trying to make everybody else happy. Stop trying to make stuff that other people want. Make the art that you like, because that's the good shit. That's the stuff.
I love it. And honestly, I think that we get that question a lot. I get that question a lot from teachers is, oh, I've got kids that are interested in songwriting. And I'm always like, embrace it. Like give them a space. But a lot of teachers don't even know where to start. Like I don't know how to give them a space. And I think it comes from, training, where it's so cut, this is right and this is wrong. And I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
there's such in our industry in vocal pedagogy, there is a huge push for more student led type of spaces. And I want to shout out to all the teachers listening to this. It's challenging to move away from a master apprentice into student led because you feel like you're not being productive enough. But
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
to
You
have
feel like,
those.
why are they paying me for this? Yeah.
Exactly. And then you're like, then you have that imposter syndrome. I don't see the progress. What are they paying for? But it's those creative spaces that are a little more open and less regimented where you get that inspiration in that place where you can explore.
Yeah. I was pre-pandemic running a class called Little Larks, which was a songwriting and musicianship for class for kids. It was like SK to grade 2 or grade 1 to grade 3, and it was intentionally really open-ended. And I would go in with sort of a loose structure of like, we're going to listen to this and we're going to like improvise over summertime on xylophones, but we're going to write a song. And like I'd be like, hey, it's winter, let's write a winter song. And then we'd start with like, play a major chord, play a minor chord. Which one do you think sounds more like winter? Right? And we would just I tried really, really, really hard to be open-ended and to just let things happen. And it was really rewarding. It was really great. I haven't done that since the pandemic because I lost my space. Like I didn't have a space to do it in. But it was the same. It was that idea of like, there actually isn't a space where kids are encouraged to be, where it's so open-ended, where kids are given this like really open-ended sense of like, hey, let's do this creative thing, how do you want it to go? Right? And it's weird as a teacher because you think like, I don't even need to be here, but you really are. You're facilitating it, and you're giving them license to be creative, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And they don't
thank
get
you.
that from anybody else.
No, and I want to thank you for bringing that up because I know that I mean, I struggle with it sometimes. Like I find uh teaching a few students, again, you're trying, it's that fine line between having some sort of set goals but also recognizing that they might be your goals and they're not appropriate for that
It's
student.
the
Like,
it's the end goal that I had to give up. Teaching that class, I had to go in and say to myself, this is going to go the way it goes. And it doesn't like it's not up to me. I don't know how this is going to end and I don't know what we're going to write. But let's, you know, and that's hard because up until then my classes are almost exactly 45 minutes. If I don't look at a clock, I can do it almost to the second to 45 minutes because I've been doing it for so long. But these classes would sometimes be an hour, they'd sometimes be a little longer, they'd sometimes be a little shorter, and it was that, like, "What's gonna happen today?" It was great. Scary, though, scary as a teacher.
yeah. Well, I hope that this conversation, if my well, let me ask you this. After listening to this interview and sharing all your stories, what would be your recommendation for simple action steps for teachers who are looking to be more student led, letting creativity, whether it's their own creativity, the teacher's own creativity, or providing a space where students can really tap into that creativity?
How old are we talking?
Any age.
Not to put me on the spot, good god.
You're welcome.
Um, there's this great exercise, which is write a bad song. Write the worst song you can write.
I love that.
Try it. Like, if your worry is, what I'm gonna write is gonna be bad, then do it intentionally. Go in and write the bad thing, right?
Right.
And see how it turns out. There's this, amazing Ira Glass, um, like, talk, I suppose, where he talks about the gap between your taste and your ability.
Oh,
And so if you are somebody who is creative and you have really good taste and you really like amazing music and you really understand it, you have to, he's saying it as a writer, but I mean, as a creative person, you just have to start doing it. And bit by bit, that gap is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller until you can start writing stuff that is to your taste. I put out 4 albums before I put out Here Comes the Train. And those albums, I hear them now and I like elements of them. But those were a much bigger gap creatively between what I really liked in my aesthetic and what I was actually producing. And it's you have to let the process happen. And if you're worried about it and you don't do it, then the gap's not going to get any smaller. Your only option is to do it. And you don't have to do it in front of anybody. You can write songs and sit down at a piano or sit down, with your guitar. And as I say, like this great exercise is write a terrible song, see how it goes. And when you're finished, I mean, you'll see, right? I'm not gonna give you the outcome. The outcome is obvious, but do it. Write a terrible song. Write a song with chords that don't make any sense and words that are ridiculous. And that's your baseline. I know you can fill the gap. You should look it up.
that is so brilliant. And for my listeners that are working with kids or adults that are into songwriting, what an amazing door you open by giving them that instruction. Write a terrible song. And I would like to say two things. First of all, there was a I was given an instruction in jazz school when it came to vocal improvisation and scatting, which was sing all the bad notes. Sing the worst note that you can possibly imagine over this change. And that totally changed. And there was like, I think there's 5 of us in the class. And at first we were mortified. I'm like, well, we're just struggling to try to find the right notes. And the teacher was like, yeah, great. So sing the bad notes and just get on with your day. And it was such a like, it just changed everything. And then the second thing I wanted to say is I don't know the guy's name, but he writes all these ridiculous little songs. He's, like, huge on Instagram and probably TikTok. He wrote, like, The
The Dirt
Sandman.
Man?
Yeah. Who
The
is
Dirt
that?
Man. I don't
Dirtman.
know, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah,
But every time he comes on, the songs are ridiculous, but also
they're so
hilarious.
catchy.
And
Yeah,
they're super catchy. And I'm like, that is
and now he's on
exactly.
tour.
I
He's
know.
on tour. Like yeah. I know, it's amazing.
Dirtman.
I'm tempted to send you, along with the Snowball Fight, a song that I have been agonizing over for years. That's a dinosaur song, and I produced a version of it when I was putting out "Here Comes the Train," and it's a B-side. It's never been released because it's terrible. No, I'm tempted to send it to you to include, but I need to preface it as like, this is a terrible song, and it's like 90s grunge. I sent it to a friend of mine and he was like, "So Limp Bizkit is doing kids songs now, are they?" It's so bad. And I keep slogging away at it because I know it's got potential, but it is that sense of like, you just have to do it. Like, just go and do a thing. And that's my younger son Ollie is really into drawing, and he has been drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing, and his drawings have been leveling up considerably. Like, he started using watercolors, he started using ink, and like every time he brings something home, I think, wait, how did you do that? But he spent a long time learning how to draw eyeballs.
Wow.
And the first time he brought an eye home, I was like, no, that's all right. That's good. And the second time he brought an eye home, I was like, oh, that's really good. And the eyelashes are really weird. And then like the next week he came home and sat down on the couch and was like, oh, by the way, I drew this. And it's black and red pen, and it's unbelievable. And I was like,
Wow.
how, where did that, so that idea of like, you,
Iteration.
yeah, iteration.
Right?
And like, even if you're a talented, creative person, we all know this. You have musical talent. You still have to practice to 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 make your talent into something that it, even if you have a natural talent, you still have to turn it into a skill, right? You still have to work at it to make it a skill. And songwriting is the exact same. So I will try and decide whether I'll send you this terrible. Maybe I'll send you a clip of it, or I'll send
Okay,
you it all, and you.
I tell you what if we just put a teeny little like a teeny little bit of it, and we'll end the podcast with it.
Okay. Wow. And people will be like, wow, that guy really does write terrible songs. It
You
sounds
know,
like Alice in Chains.
oh my gosh, I love it. Okay. Well, here I first of all, Ben, I have to thank you. It is you are so delightful to talk to. I miss these
Oh,
conversations.
I know.
I miss chatting with you in the playground, and of course our kids don't go our kids are grown up and don't need a playground, at least not that one
Is Noah
anymore.
in high
But
school?
he is
Oh my
grade
God.
9.
Yeah, Ollie starts high school next year. Wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
I know. He's taller than Sean.
How tall is that?
Like he's going on 6 or 5'11".
Whoa.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a big kid.
I know.
Yeah, they get
And
big.
yeah,
I
it's
I can wear Ollie's clothes now.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, like we're sharing clothes. He's not quite
Wow.
as tall as me, but it's getting there.
Oh,
I know.
crazy. I wanna thank you. I wanna thank you for the work that you do, because it's
Oh,
important work. And I wanna thank you for sharing your amazing music. On behalf of my entire team, we truly love working with your songs, your melodies, and the feedback from our people, our teachers that use our resources is they love it. Their kids, their students love it, and they're waiting for more songs. So I'm
thank
happy to
you.
say that we have another songbook coming out, and we have a couple of your single song, like for our song download packages. We've got a few of those coming out, so I'm so excited. So to my listeners that are desperately waiting for Ben Bowen songs, they're coming, I promise. um Ben, I hope I hope 2025 is gonna be continue on your lift there, your that
Trajectory.
trajectory. It
Yeah,
just keeps going. And again,
me
thank you for
too.
partnering with us. Where can people find and follow you and get their hands on your music?
It's all Mr. Ben's music. So the website is mrbensmusic.ca. The Instagram is Mr. Ben's Music. If you follow Mr. Ben Music, that guy's in Portland, Oregon, so don't follow him. Mr. Ben's Music.
Okay, good to
Yeah.
know.
On Facebook and Instagram on the Meta, at least for now,
Right.
unless I bail on Meta. Anyway,
Fair.
and there's I think if you look up Mr. Ben's Music on YouTube, there's a ton of content there as well. That's
Beautiful
full classes, so that's not single songs, but
Sure.
yeah, Mr. Ben's, just keep the S in Mr. Ben's, and I'm all over the internet on that.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And are your albums still available on Bandcamp?
They're all on Bandcamp. Yeah,
Cool.
as well as one that I put up last year, which is an old record that I produced as a musical, an unofficial musical of Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh,
Which
beautiful.
is like the first record I ever put out, and so it's much more like the most recent record that I put out, and it's much, I don't know, it's I love it. My sister thinks it's my best work, which I won't take personally. Oh, I prefer his early work, she says. Yeah, so the soundtrack to Where the Wild Things Are, which you can use as just like a companion to the book.
Beautiful.
mrben.bandcamp.com.
Lovely. I'm going to put all those links in the show notes.
Thanks, Nikki. Yeah, it's been so encouraging to talk to you. It's great not to feel like, it's weird as an artist, right? You feel like you're sometimes toiling away in the darkness. So it's nice that there are people who appreciate what you're doing.
Oh, I love it. I love it. A very special thank you to Ben for sharing his time today, and of course for sharing his beautiful music with us here at Full Voice Music. If you would like to check out some of Ben's songs on fullvoicemusic.com, just go to the songs tab and you'll find his beautiful music. And to finish off this podcast, we're gonna let things go with a few dinosaurs. As always, my friend, I'm wishing you inspired teaching and happy singing.
Dinosaur, stomp the floor, carnivore, herbivore, dinosaurs, lizard force, stomp and thrash, snort and roar, apatosaur, pterosaur, spinosaur, stegosaur, velociraptor, tyrannosaur. Dinosaur, stomp the floor, carnivore, herbivore, dinosaurs, lizard force, stomp and thrash, snort and roar, apatosaur, pterosaur, spinosaur, stegosaur, velociraptor, tyrannosaur. Dinosaur, stomp the floor, carnivore, herbivore, dinosaurs, lizard force, stomp and thrash, snort and roar.